Well, hi, this is Bob Odell with Root Source, and I am here today with one of my first friends in Israel, Merv Watson. Hey, Merv.
Hey, nice to be with you, Bob.
Well,
So you just arrived.
on this trip, yes.
Yeah, okay.
But when I first arrived in this sort of work that I'm doing now with Gedon and everything, I met up with you really early. I think it was probably at a Christine Darg conference.
Oh, yeah?
You were there. And from the very beginning, I found that I could ask you questions and you would have comments about things that I might say, and I could come to you with questions, and I actually got some really nice direction from you about a number of different topics.
Oh, how interesting. Well, I'm inspired by almost everything.
Well,
So
you're like the Renaissance man.
that's about it. And I'll show you a little later some of my artwork and music.
Okay.
Yeah,
So I've got a few things. I had a list. You've got it here. A list of topics that I wanted to talk to you about. And if you want to add to that, you're welcome to.
Sure.
Should we just walk down this?
Sure, go ahead.
Well, the first thing is one of the early things I heard you talk about was Mount Sinai, the real Mount Sinai in Saudi Arabia.
Right. Mount Jabal Alaz.
Yes. Yes.
Or the Mountain of Moses.
Yes.
As it's remembered now. And as this particular Bedouin was saying, nothing much changes in 5,000 years in the desert.
Right.
So you should be able to find most things that were there when Moses was there. Well, the Sinai that's been accepted as Mount Sinai in the Sinai Peninsula doesn't have anything of 4,000 years plus memory.
Right. The St. Catherine's Monastery.
It was a nice idea.
Yeah.
The monks of the 4th, 5th, 6th century of the Greek persuasion were going there for times of meditation and seclusion and so on. So it kind of started. The mother of Constantine, Helena, was located a lot of this in her visions and where she was staying as to where these different places were, like the Church of the Holy Sepulchre and so on. So Mount Sinai was picked, but without any archaeological backup. Whereas Jabal Alaz has all the archaeological backup. It has the bitter water. It has the 12 pedestals for the 12 tribes. It's got a huge 60-foot by 40-foot altar area for offerings, and on it are 24 carved calves. And of course, Saudi Arabia has never had cows until they were brought along by the
Oh, that's a good point.
Israel. Okay, and they're carved out, just like they appear in the pyramids walls.
So we've mentioned this idea on Root Source before. You're the first person who ever mentioned it to me personally. Of course, people have been talking about this for a while, but for a few decades anyway. One of my questions to you about this is, you've known this for a while. Is this idea about the real location for Mount Sinai, is that going to move into the mainstream? And if so, when? How long is it going to take?
Well, there was a fellow called Ron Wyatt who crossed the border at Aqaba.
Yeah.
And got into Saudi Arabia, and with a guide found this mountain. And at the base of the mountain, they found a gold bracelet, sort of in the sand. And so the guide realized that he had something there, and if he told on these folks, then he'd probably get a reward, and then he'd maybe come back and find other gold things. So Ron Wyatt and his two sons went to jail for 8 months, and because they found where this place was. And Ron Wyatt had the idea that maybe at the base of the mountain, some of the gold would be buried that was Moses had the people drink.
Yes.
But, you know.
Yes.
And so this is what he believes. So he told two people that were capable of coming over here and searching it out. Kind of interesting story between Bob Colas and Larry Williams. They came over, and they started the story because they raised a video. They had a video on the whole thing,
Yeah.
and they built on that. Much to the chagrin of the Saudi Arabians, I guess, because when they arrived, they thought they'd get this big trough of gold or whatever, but they found a great big trench of nothing there. And it just so happened that Saudi Arabia opened a museum not long after that with a lot of materials that were probably in the trench. Okay, so, but
Wow.
it's never got out because of the secrecy that Saudi Arabia doesn't like to have strangers,
Right.
non-Muslims there.
Right.
You know,
There's some talk actually of a major city that may be built in that part, in sort of the northwest corner of Saudi Arabia there, next to Jordan and Israel. It'll
Right.
be interesting to see how that develops. If tourism starts moving in there, then there might be more pressure to be able to view some of these amazing sites only a few miles away.
I would say so. Probably, if Palestine, the area, District Palestine, there was no city, the District of Palestine, under the British mandate, would have included that in the area for Israel.
Oh, yeah.
But of
Yeah.
course, that's the big secret.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to admit that 75% of the Palestine was given away because of oil pressure.
Yes.
You know, and so Israel is left with this 24%.
Let's move to another topic. We've been meeting at conferences. We've both had the pleasure of listening to Orthodox Jews speak at Christian conferences. There's been a dynamic going on between Christians and Jews. But you've been here for many years. You've watched it for decades. What do you see? What kind of progress has been made, and where do you think this is heading?
Well, today on internet, David Nekrutman was commissioned by the Orthodox community to go to study at Oral Roberts University. He showed his MA graduate acknowledgement from the governors of the University of Oral Roberts.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And so to have an Orthodox man graduate from a heavy-duty Pentecostal university like that, that's what they call progress, I guess. I mean, it's just
and he just actually got his certificate,
That's
I think,
right.
in the last few months, right?
Well, it was just on internet today.
Okay.
He says, guess what I got in the mail today?
Oh, okay.
There
Got
it is. You see? Yeah. And we study with him. He lectures with the CJUCC, and it's an organization developed between Jews and Christians discussing issues and the Torah in depth with a lot of elaboration on what some of the Hebrew words meant, as well as what the meanings we've taken from them. What other meanings do they have? And so that's become a very big thing.
I didn't know you were connected into the CJCUC.
Well, we've attended this Bible study since it started.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's the Center for Jewish and Christian Understanding and Cooperation.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, because we found that we're living in critical times. And I realize that most Bible schools give 1 week of Hebrew. I've been here for years, and my Hebrew is still weak. Not 1 week, it's just weak. For a variety of reasons, but we've been working with English speakers practically all the time. However, what's happening is that because we live in critical times, we want fundamental answers. And the Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible, are the Bible. Everything else is commentaries. So the 5 books are the things that lead to our fundamental roots. And when you've got a tree that's tall, it can only be tall in relation to how deep the roots are. So if we want our Christianity to again have the ascendancy and depth necessary, You don't spend your life trying to cut the roots off and call it replacement theology. You rather encourage the roots, because the xylem and the phloem are the nurturing of the tree,
Mm-hmm.
and if you cut the roots off, it makes you the sap, because you just ruined the tree. The tree will eventually die for lack of nourishment. So what a lot of people are doing, they're becoming interested in the Hebrew roots of the faith. It's been overlaid with a lot of layers of added things, but underneath it all, there's this fundamental acknowledgement that there's only one nation in history that's ever heard the voice of God directly, and that way became a prophetic nation.
Yeah.
That's Israel. So you want to know about God, you don't go to necessarily the Baptist seminary for the week of Hebrew, but if you're dealing with the original language, you don't go to a German and say, I don't know you're German, but I want to tell you about your language.
Yeah.
You don't go to a Jewish person and say, I don't know any Hebrew, but I want to tell you about the Hebrew, what it says. So that's arrogance, and this is kind of thing that Paul warned about. Don't be arrogant.
You're making a couple of different points here. One of the points you made very quickly at first was about the Torah. I want to come back to that. So we've generally heard the idea that things that are found in the New Testament can be found in the Old Testament. But you're saying something else. Are you that everything in the Tanakh, the Old Testament, can be found in the Torah, in the 5? It's hidden in there, and so the commentary, the rest of the Tanakh is commentary to commenting on essentially what is also found as in the Torah. If I got that right.
That's right. No. There's a saying which says a text without a context is a pretext.
That's good.
Now, all of Jesus' selections were all from the Tanakh. He didn't invent a new book.
Right.
He was drawing from the prophets. It so happened that Ezekiel or Isaiah, Jeremiah, Amos, Haggai, all of them were the product of a revelation, a prophetic revelation, in that period of time, about 400 or 500 years. And they came forth with things that had to be revelation from heaven, because the things they're talking about didn't exist.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Isaiah talks about buses, people moving together, airplanes, the strangest references. He had no idea what he was saying. But the idea that he was given was the future. So when we talk about prophecy, people are very curious of what's going to happen in the world. And so the context of some of the words, for example, who was the prophet? Who was the prophet speaking to? Who was he answering the questions of? Where was he getting his material? And suddenly realized it had to be a revelation. And so when Jesus speaks of selecting selections from the Tanakh,
yes, he's
selecting them in context. And that's what we miss in Christianity. You take it almost like cherry picking.
Okay.
You take a verse here and a verse and a verse. What's the connection? Who's speaking to whom about what?
All right. When we return, we will continue our interview with Merv Watson. Stay with us. All right, we are back with Merv Watson, where we will continue our interview with him.
Jesus always had to prepared the context, and we have a tendency to no context. We don't know who's speaking to about what. So like Paul's letters, for example.
Wait, before you go to Paul's letters,
yeah.
You're saying Jesus, when he's quoting the prophets, he's quoting them in their proper context. What does it mean to quote a verse of the prophets in its proper context versus not in its proper context?
Okay, there's a favorite thing that we have, is that behold, a virgin shall conceive. Now, this is a question that was asked of Isaiah.
Yes.
The king wanted to know, should he go to battle or not to battle? I think he's going to battle Jeroboam or something.
Oh, yes.
And so he says, show me, give me a sign. So the next thing that Isaiah said, he said, behold, a virgin shall conceive and bring forth a son. You should call his name Wonderful Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father.
Right.
All of these descriptions. So you have to, when you take that verse, you say, well, who's asking? Rehoboam's asking, or whoever the king was at that point, I think it's who it was. He's asking the prophet, give me a sign. And the sign is what he gave him. But it's 700 years before the event.
Yes.
But it points out the names, the Wonderful Counselor, the Mighty God. That's the 5 feasts of the year.
For a child will be born to us, a son will be given to us, and the government will rest on his shoulders, and his name will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Eternal Father, and Prince of Peace. And the increase of his government there'll be no end. So you're saying those 5 descriptions apply or parallel the 5 major feasts.
Well, Shavuot is the Wonderful Counselor. That's when you got the baptism of the Spirit, receiving.
Oh, the counselor being, yes.
Counselor, okay.
The counselor that will come. Mm-hmm.
Next one.
Mighty God.
Mighty God, he showed these acts of miracles constantly, the Mighty God. But the Mighty God was also revealed in Passover when they went through the sea.
Of course. Next
yeah.
One. Eternal, everlasting Father.
Everlasting Father. My Father which art in heaven, blessed be thy name, hallowed be thy name. And so he was speaking to the Father. Okay. And then the 4th?
Prince of Peace.
Prince of Peace. Well, Sukkot is a dedication to the joy of all the harvest being made, all the peace in the land. It's something illegal to be not joyful during that period of time.
Right.
The Prince of Peace. And of course the Messiah brings peace. My peace I give unto you, not that that the world gives, but so he becomes the Prince of Peace.
Right. Huh.
Okay.
Now you call it 5 because
Yom Kippur is in there. Okay. You have peace when you repent, and then it leads to the Prince of Peace. It's not mentioned as such, but it's in there.
I see.
Implying that you get peace by repenting, by admitting where you've fallen short.
That's interesting. Yeah, and in fact, peace is mentioned again in this. It's sort of in the after all this. It says there will be no end to the increase of his government or of peace. I've seen a pattern in the when you have 5s in Scripture. I've seen a pattern that will also parallel the 5 gifts to the church. Mm-hmm. And the last one is always the one that runs forever. It's the teacher, apostle, prophet, evangelist, pastor, and teacher. Teacher is the one that runs forever. It's the one that you teach the next generation so you can continue to move on. So it's interesting. I've never thought about that being a pattern of 5 as well.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, so I have a question for you. Christians and Jews, there's a lot of things happening. You gave an example of David Krugman. What about the future? What about where things are headed? Does it feel that we are in a different time in Israel in terms of the relationship between Christians and Jews? And where is this thing headed?
Okay, the clue comes in the 1967 cleansing of Jerusalem. There was a 3-day cleansing of Jerusalem in preparation for the idea that Jerusalem shall be trodden down by the Gentiles until the days of the Gentiles are over.
Yeah.
Well,
but would you say cleansing? What do you mean a 3-day cleansing?
They went from door to door. I'm really located who was here. You see, in other words,
cleansing as in removal of
a lot of things. Idolatry will be removed. A lot of things will be removed, and that isn't major in when people talk about it. But they understand that there are double meanings, and the other meaning often is within the Hebrew itself, or the Aramaic, or whatever is being used there. That's the impression I've got, and that there's
interesting.
It's the problem with these double. See, Hebrew is such an old language that when you go to a dictionary and you look up the Hebrew word, you may find 30 meanings, and sometimes the last meaning almost contradicts the first meaning. So the subtlety of the language,
yes,
is what we miss.
Yes. So you say that in 67, that was the big shift.
That's right.
And so we're seeing ramifications of that.
Yeah, because it's the first time in 2,000 years that the Jews have had control of all of Jerusalem.
So you see that 67 event directly connected to the quote of Jesus when he says, Jerusalem will be trampled underfoot until the times of the Gentiles are fulfilled. But you don't think that the times of the Gentiles are completely fulfilled, right? So what I mean...
No, because...
Is it just... Go ahead.
We're still wrestling over this, who owns Jerusalem?
Yes.
It's so obvious.
Yes.
I mean...
So are you saying it's 67 are you saying 67 was flipping the switch, 67 was the beginning of a process, or the 67 was the first of multiple waves?
It was one of the first indications that the days of the Gentiles might be over.
Okay. One of the first indications. So
yeah.
There's more there's more to come.
Because it's gradually, as we see the thinning out
yes.
of people adherent to the Bible, and we see the Western civilization dumping the Bible out of its existence.
Yes.
This is a further end of the days of the Gentiles.
Okay.
Because the days of the Gentiles imply that they're connected. But if we keep trying to get rid of the Jews, which is our only connection really to the basic fundamentals of our faith,
okay.
Rome is not the connection. It's something built on. Judaism does not need Christianity, but Christianity needs Judaism.
Agreed.
And the thing is that we have this problem of dealing with, how do we deal with these Jews that came back from the obliteration? They didn't exist for 2,000 years, and all of a sudden they're back. Well, the best thing we can do is we'll have to get rid of them, I guess, because, I mean, they're interfering with our Christianity. So, I mean, you've got a problem there.
So you're saying that I think by implication, you're saying we're not looking at this thing right. As Christians, we have a relationship with the Jews, and that relationship is changing. What I hear you saying is, no, look at it from the standpoint of a transition from Gentile to Jew.
That's right. The transition is in preparation for the church to restore its connections to the first 5 books. Now, we're not going to start animal sacrifice and all that. Moses' revelation had limitations and demands and edges. We see more the Abrahamic one, which was blessing is given freely. God committed himself to himself while Abraham slept. So basically it was God and God committing himself to fulfilling the blessings of Abraham. And that core part of that is, if those that will bless you will be blessed, those that curse you will be cursed.
Yes.
And whoever falls into either category are the ones that are going to find the peace. Realize that the last feast, which would be the Feast of Peace, when everything has settled out and Messiah is in charge. And Daniel, when it talks about the Ancient of Days, really gives the scepter to someone who becomes the head of all nations. That someone is not elaborated on too much. But we know who it is, we suspect who it is. So we have to get used to the idea that there's going to be a ruling from Jerusalem that is beginning to start, but is not completed, and we're still wrestling with this whole thing. So that's the larger picture.
Well, speaking of that larger picture, there's a topic here that I wanted to ask you about. There's the 9th of Av. Comes around every summer. The traditional day of Jewish mourning, day of great tragedy. First temple destroyed on that day. Second temple destroyed on that day. Bar Kokhba revolt put down on that day, and many other things, including the expulsion of the Jews in Spain. There's been a bit of talk in Israel, and I'm wondering if you've heard it. If any talk about whether that day of tragedy could actually become a day of joy. Do you have any comment about that?
Well, first of all, it's the ninth of Av is a memorial. Mm-hmm. It's a memorial to all of these events.
Yes.
It's also a warning. The warning is these events can continue until you repent, until you realize, okay, Jesus leaned over on the Mount of Olives and he said to the Sanhedrin of the day, you, Sanhedrin, shall not see me again until you shall say, Baruch haba b'shem Adonai, blessed is he that comes in the name of the Lord. Mm-hmm. The Sanhedrin isn't formed yet, but there has to be a Sanhedrin to acknowledge, we'll say it. There has to be the leadership of the day,
yes,
of Israel, because when God gave man dominion on the earth, he can't just come and be and take up dominion again.
Yes,
he needs to be invited. All the protocol of natives, remember that things have to be protocoled. The Maoris came here with a huge canoe, and they paddled it on the ocean of the Mediterranean until they were invited on shore. That's protocol of the indigenous peoples. They remember. So if God gives man dominion over the earth, he's got to be invited back. Or he's made a mistake in the dominion. See, in other words, yes. Not until you shall say, the leadership of the Israel, that I'm welcome.
And so at what point do you think that memorial of the 9th of Av becomes a point of feasting?
Well,
when he comes.
When the fifth festival, the festival of peace, when harvest is in, everything's joyful with that whole week. It's Sukkot. It's basically the Feast of Tabernacles. That's why when we started the Feast of Tabernacles here in 1979, it says we just felt it was time to point, the Christians point at this feast, which will be the Feast of Harvest. It'll be the completion of all things.
Yes.
When the Lord's knowledge of the Lord shall cover the whole earth as the waters cover the sea. That truly is peace.
That completion of all things, that idea of completion of all things in that feast, is that the key ingredient that created this event to be as popular as it is today? I mean, more Christians come in for this, and the march that they have every year, 6,000,
6,500 this year.
Yeah, 6,500 this year. So is that what's drawing? Is it the completion of all things, or is it just a let's come for the party? What is it?
Not at all. First of all, the most people that came this year were the Brazilians and the Chinese. How do they know about this? How can they tell that this is what's happening? Well, the Jewish comment is they're being drawn here just like we're being drawn here. You're all people of the book. Mm-hmm. Therefore, if you know the book, you have within you the Holy Spirit is convicting you to know what the book means. Not just what you've been told, but maybe what's been revealed to you through the Spirit you say you have. So people are being drawn here. I mean, almost 4 million tourists this year. Well, with all the bad anti-Semitism, you'd think you'd have less people. But in fact, it's a record. Because it's the inner man. You always find the inner man wants to worship something. So you get all these 135 pagan cults trying to worship something. But it's wearing out. And so they're trying to find if this is the real worshiping we should be doing, the internal man always has some object, some altar, some object to worship.
Yeah.
This is it. This is this land is a revelation of what it should be.
That's a beautiful thought. And of all the feasts, for sure, Feast of Tabernacles is the one where more people come in. Sukkot, more people come in than for any other feast. What makes this particular feast stand out? Also,
well, it started. We had 400 people the first year.
That's a lot for a first year.
It is. The second year was 1,500, and we were hardly prepared for that. We didn't have any idea that this was going to happen. When I go to the feast and go to the embassy and so on, I'm amazed at the dimensions of this thing. It was just a little idea I had in '78. I mean, it was time we had something where the Jews and the Christians got together, because they don't do that. I mean, we spend our time with the Christians, English speaking, and they spend their time with the Hebrew speaking.
Yeah.
So how do we cross this barrier? What becomes of it? Well, it's in spite of the barrier of language, people have a sense that if there's anything real in the whole universe to worship, people that have hung on to this for 3,500 years or so, or 3,200 years, and they've had this name, God, El at the end, Israel.
Right.
So there must be something to this. Oh, well, how do they hang on to something like this? Meanwhile, our Christianity, with its 38,000 denominations, is becoming increasingly thin.
Yeah.
Its substance is getting rather threadbare. I mean, I come from Plymouth Brethren background.
Plymouth Brethren
background, like Ord Wingate, so on. And I used to go to church and they used to preach getting saved. I looked around and I figured everybody was already saved, but that's the main theme. The clue is, how do you get them saved? How do you get them saved? But that's not it. The clue is, how do you disciple them?
Yeah.
How do they remain rich in their story? How do they do this? Well, the Jews have done it.
All right, we will continue our interview with Merv Watson after we take a break. Well, this is Bob Odell from Root Source, and let's rejoin our interview with Merv Watson.
I mean, I come from Plymouth Brethren background.
Plymouth Brethren
background, like Ord Wingate, so on. And I used to go to church and they used to preach getting saved. I looked around and I figured everybody was already saved, but that's the main theme. The clue is, how do you get them saved? How do you get them saved? But that's not it. The clue is, how do you disciple them?
Yeah.
How do they remain rich in their story? How do they do this? Well, the Jews have done it. A band of them have done it. Not everybody, but the band of them have done it. And there must be something to this, to hang on to something like this. All that stuff in the Bible must have really happened. So now they're digging it all up. Yeah, this happened, that happened, confirming Hezekiah's bulla, his stamp, Isaiah's stamp, Jeremiah's, the two guys that put him in the well, their rings that are found. So it's happening, and the world hates to admit it. Somebody the other day says, scientists have discovered that we do come from two people, not baboons. And so you've got these droppings of threat to what we've accepted since 1850, origins of species and all that business. Evolution stupidity is just awful. So we've swallowed that apple.
Yeah.
It's created communism. It created all sorts of craziness that don't work out. Well, you've tried everything now. So the last thing to try is, maybe the Jews were right. I mean,
maybe the Jews were right. Maybe God is who he says he is. And maybe the nations are going to come and you know and recognize the ruling from Jerusalem.
I'm thinking of this T-shirt they have 15 lists of empires that were destined to kill the Jews.
Yeah.
And they're all gone. And I look at that $14 million menorah. It's going to be put in the third temple. And I see the broken down Roman pillars next to it. I think,
that's pretty funny.
I said, look at the irony of this thing. This little scrap
Roman
of people,
pillars. Yeah,
1.5 million taken off as slaves, the rest of them killed them. Where did they come from? They're still around.
Yeah.
And that's to prove it. So if it's here, then come on, admit it.
Yeah.
That's called repenting. Repent of the stupidity you followed in our culture. You came from a baboon. Maybe you did. I didn't. So, you know,
it's only been said that I did.
Yeah, that's right. I don't really believe that. But so we've come to the point now where we've tried absolutely everything. And so now we're going to come into an age of robots. And the biggest thing that we need in our society is meaning. And if every time you answer the phone, a robot comes on and tells you which buttons to press, well, it's going to get worse. We're going to end up with piles of people with no jobs. That the robots will be taken over and they have nothing to do. That is what we're coming to. The larger picture. It's faster every day. And it comes innovations from this country here.
Yeah.
Is one of the chief innovations to create no jobs. What do you do with people that have nothing, no meaning? You can live longer without food than without meaning. That's what Frankl said in his book, Man of Such a Soul. So you've got this sense of, we've got to decide, is humanity created or is it a vast accident?
Mm-hmm.
Well, anybody that knows this much science, like we have no excuse. The internet is covered in dynamic proof of what we're made up of, and it simply has to be designed.
I totally agree, and I think that the only way you can't see it is if you blind yourself.
You don't want to see it.
You don't want to see it, yet you have to work really hard. Now, within those who do believe, are followers of God and see this coming together of Jews and non-Jews, there's a few different models out there. Some people talk about Israel and the nations. Fine. Some people talk about the 10 tribes coming and joining with the house of Judah, the two tribes. Some people talk about the sojourners coming alongside Israel. Some people stick with, it's Gentile and Jew, but one new man. And then there's the Commonwealth of Israel. Do you have a favorite way, personally, of perceiving this progression of what God is doing on the earth?
Well, Islam is doing it for us.
I wasn't expecting that to be your answer.
Okay. Yeah, Islam is doing it for us.
How so?
Well, he's forcing the people of the book.
He's forcing the people of the book to come together.
That's right. That's number one. Now, Noah, presumably, within his endocrine equipment, was us. In other words, we descended from whatever was left of the flood people.
Yes,
okay?
Yes.
It means that if living the days of Noah, this is a phrase, living the days of Noah, days of Lot, and so on. Lot we can understand. We got anyway, but Noah, where's the ark? One of the big features of Noah was the ark.
Right.
Now there's a Dutchman bringing a live model of ark on the ocean. That's not it. It's a psychological, spiritual ark where people derive meaning from this ark. Mm-hmm. It's a solution to meaninglessness. And so where is our source of imagination? Where's the chief innovation happening? Right here. So what's being created by these developments is more and more meaning. And if there's one thing we need now, it's a famine of meaning we have. You see all these people killing themselves, the crisis of suicides? That's all because they have no meaning. So the necessity of meaning is a fundamental necessity of life.
So, for those of us who believe, we believe in the one true God, and see that there's meaning, and we see in Scripture that there's some different models being discussed.
Yeah.
How do you see within that context? Do you have a favorite model?
Yeah, Joshua, when he arrived with this crowd of people, he said to them, look, choose life rather than death.
Yeah.
Choosing life is a choice. We can choose death, become a death religion, like the one that's crowding all people together, making the people of the book targets. There's that crowd that have a kind of a covenant with death. But that's not the crowd we're interested in. We're interested in the crowd of life. And because the oldest empire in the world, by implication, is the Israeli Empire. The Israeli Empire covered 5 empires. If you want to get into all of them, I won't get into all now, but Carthage was one of them.
Yes.
Okay, and there's Iberia
in Northern
was
Africa.
another. Iberia, and there's a whole thing there that's quite phenomenal. But we're being pressured into acknowledging the God of Israel. Why? Because of this impossibility that we're living in. How can you have, in 1948 to 52, 3 times your population? There were 600,000 poor people here.
Yes.
All of a sudden, there's 1.5 million people, 3 times this population, waiting at the doors to come in.
Right.
And so all of these people, the Jews in the Arab countries, had nothing but their shirts, no substance, nothing. So the fathers, the leaders here, got together and said, look, we can't have this. We have to wait 20 years. They said, no, we can't wait 20 years. These people will be dead.
Right.
We've got to open up. So what you're sitting in right here, this house, was part of the little houses created for this influx of 3 times the population of the land. That is a miracle.
This is where we are right now.
That's
Your
right.
house is one of those houses.
That's right.
That were put in right in that
That's
right.
right.
initial phase.
Yeah.
We've got some interesting things. Our backdrop here is a lot of material. What's going on behind us?
All behind. My wife is a writer of music. She's written about 575 songs. Wake, O Israel, Jehovah Jireh, He that keepeth Israel among them. And so all this stuff is her arrangements.
Wow.
She's a quartet player. She has all this as a quartet arrangements. And so we've been taking this around. We're moving again, possibly, I don't know. But anyway, that's the backdrop. Not too pleasant, but there it is. But it makes lovely music.
Well, this backdrop is a backdrop of substance, and it shows you if you want to do something beautiful, there's a lot of work behind it.
A lot of work. There's about 150 arrangements of quartets and music is. Merla has this incredible ability to be riding on a plane. She has an inspiration, doesn't go near a piano, hears the whole thing in her head, like Beethoven, writes it all down, and out comes music.
Yeah, you and Merla still sing together. I
heard
heard you recently, a couple of months ago, I think, in the Sukkot.
We just did 5 concerts. We went to Canada and did 5 concerts, and also we just got back ourselves. Yeah, no, and I'm an artist. I do a lot of painting. I got a studio. I'll show you. There's a room in there full of my pictures.
Oh, okay.
I just laid them out now.
Okay. Okay, we're here with Merv in his studio. So tell us about some of the things that we've got here.
Well, this is what's left in Nimrod's castle. My favorite top here is mountains. Coming from British Columbia. We got
right here?
Yeah, all those. Everything is mine. It's Yosemite Park in British Columbia.
Mm.
I used to work there.
Nice.
And this is the southern end of Wales into the ocean.
Oh, cool.
This is a treatment of a mountain, Moraine Lake Mountain in the Rockies.
Okay.
And this is a treatment also part of the extension of the England out into the ocean. This is the grave
of the garden tomb.
Tomb.
Uh-huh.
Let me see. This big thing here, that's the Zechariah monument, known as Absalom's memorial. This is various shots of Jerusalem, the Tower of David.
Wow.
Yeah.
That Tower of David is...
mosque. You'd have a fit.
Beautiful.
And this is basically my... This is kind of a cartoon time, I think. This is shopping in Nazareth, this Arab couple. This did it.
Wow.
And this is one of my favorite mountains in the Rockies called Mount Sinai.
The Mount of what?
Mount Sinai.
How do you spell that?
Assinboine.
Wow.
Sinai. It's got beautiful rainbow trout and stuff in there.
Oh.
And then this is also a glacier near Moraine Lake, which is in the Rockies. This is Capernaum.
Oh, I recognize
Synagogue.
that. Oh, I recognize that.
And this is the water coming off Mount Hermon.
Oh,
Whether
right
you get
here?
that or not.
Yeah. I think so. What is this? What is
That's a Moline Lake, Jasper. Moline Lake in Alberta.
Huh.
This is the caves, Roshanikra. This is the caves. The ocean comes in and cuts out the limestone, and that's part of Israel.
Nice.
This is Masaba, out in the desert with 6,000 monks there at one point in that area. Anyway, that's some of the things.
Nice.
Yeah.
So do you have a favorite out of
let me see. I'll show you one. It's an old man making falafels in the 50s.
Oh.
And that's Ackle Beach. But anyway, that's,
Right.
So
tell me, what's the...
He's making falafels here. He's sitting in the dark, but using his light. It becomes a metaphor for Israel.
Oh, wow. Thank you for your... I'm going to take a picture of all of your pencils here because you've got a lot. But this is great. I love, what a treasure to come in and see where the work... All right. We will continue our interview with Merv Watson in another segment. Until next time, this is Bob Odell saying Shalom. Hi, this is Bob Odell. We are back with Root Source, continuing our interview with Merv Watson.
We're being forced together by the darkness that's encroaching. You want to live in darkness? You can stay in the darkness. And you may even like the darkness. But when Joshua says, therefore choose life, as for me and my house, we're serving the Lord. Get your act together. Who do you think brought for 40 years out of the desert? The darkness of Egypt, and you lived with the darkness. You had the light, they had the darkness. You want to stay there? Stay there. It's your choice.
Is this the theme of light and life, which comes from a light of the Torah and the life choose life from Joshua? Is this a theme that this just runs between you and Merla? Is this?
Well, I tell you what. She's 81. I'm 82, and I'm always accused of being 50.
I know. I would accuse you of being a lot less than 80.
And Merla, when she gets a picture taken, she's very photographic. I mean, there's some pictures on the internet right now. We did her birthday party. Anyway, it's. Yeah, I guess it is there, because we've traveled a great deal. We've been married 55 years, and we've traveled to 45 countries to promote this Feast of Tabernacles and the embassy and everything we started.
Let me just ask you outright. Are you living longer and healthier because you're here in Israel? Because you've staked a claim?
No. Well, yeah, in a sense, yes. I go to Genesis 12, and I see I'm being blessed.
It's about blessing Israel. It's not necessarily that you're planted here in the land, and so that's...
The food is the greatest in the world. You can't beat the food here. Because fruit, for example, has 8 sugars. 2 of them are what you have before they're really ripe. The last 3 days of maturing, all the other 6 sugars come in. But you have to pick the fruit ripe.
Oh,
you can't pick it green.
Okay, this is a general principle that I didn't know. If you pick fruit
green,
ripe, or you only get 2. But if you pick it ripe, then you can get
and
6.
None of the fruit or vegetables are more than 50 miles from market here, so they pick it fresh. They pick it, and you go to the market. Amazing! And people come here and be like, "The food is great." Yeah, because the sugars are all there. When you get stuff from California, bless the little hearts in California, but they jab it with some thing to make us color. Oranges are here are green. They look green, but they're ripe in there.
Oh, okay.
See? And they gradually get the color, but it's not till the last few days. So you get a very real vegetable and fruit that you love, you enjoy. And number one, we don't get too much of the NGO business or GMO or whatever it is. We have the food here is the best in the world, and the water is the best in the world. It's got lime in it. It's got a lot of other things, but it's purified, and so there's a lot of aspects, and the temperature is right to live here. You have to shovel for snow for 8 months, like in Toronto or whatever we used to live. So you have an aspect of enjoyment of 6 months of sunshine.
So you're not just saying that, like, okay, because God chose this land as Israel and called it Israel, then we live longer. You're saying it's more than that. It's that because this land has everything that it needs, and it's protected, it's cared for, so it actually has the best ingredients, and regardless of what the name was.
That's right. It's been abandoned for 1,850 years. So all the elements for growth are sitting here. Use us, use us, use us.
Yeah.
And finally the people come along who know how to use you, and all of a sudden in the Haggai, it talks about how the Lord is going to bless the fruit, the vegetables, the fields, and the children. This is the most fertile for children in the world, this building. 10% of the garbage, not the building, the country, the garbage, 10% of the garbage are diapers. I mean, this place everywhere you go to the Mr. Panim to get immigration,
growth rate.
and you kind of push back 15 baby carriages.
Yeah.
And you walk down the street and you find, there it is. So there's something about ebullience, and Israel has a contract with life, not with death.
It's nice, and you have a contract with life, not with death, and your long-time marriage with your wife, and you're living covenant. You're living out your covenant marriage, and it just
God only works in covenants. If you got no covenant with your relationship, it ain't going to be blessed.
Yeah, it is an amazing spiritual device that God created.
That's
called
right.
Covenant. So, Merv, I've got a question for you. We hear this phrase in Romans chapter 11 that all Israel will be saved. What does that mean in your opinion?
Well, first of all, God is the judge of the hearts. If you just took the outward image of people, you don't know anything about the heart. But God knows the heart. So those that want to be with God when they die, or when they pass through the transition of death, they will be. God has given us his name, Yud He Vav, but he's added Gimel rather than Yud He Vav He. And Gimel is flesh and bone. He's given us that encasing to choose for him or against him. But the other, Yud He Vav, is also in every DNA. So you've got God's name. In him we live and move and breathe and have our being.
Yes.
We don't realize how deep that is.
Oh, wow.
It's total.
Wow.
You can try, but you can't get away. God is in every cell. So, but he's added this. So his words, his letters add up to 26. Ours add up to 24. He made us in his image, but he didn't make us God. So we don't have his full name.
That's interesting.
We choose, if we want to take his name on, we choose by our flesh and bone to join yourself up in the one name.
Wow.
And there's only this one name given under heaven, which we must be saved by. Well, it's Hashem, it's Adonai, it's Yud He Vav He. It's that ultimate name of God. You choose that, or you ignore it. And that's the free will we have. So we have no excuse. So all around us is God's design and benevolence.
Wow.
We choose for it. So the ones that can choose, there's people in Israel that are not choosing for God. They choose this life, this interest, and something else. So it's always ultimately God knows who are his. And it's a drawing of the hearts. And that drawing of the hearts is like the drawing of the non-Jewish people to Israel today to find out, is it really true? All you've been saying all these centuries? And some will say yes. That's where Israel will be saved. Those that will be, will be. Those that won't be, he doesn't violate personality.
Right.
He could have hooked us up with some wiring at the beginning. He didn't.
It's amazing. It's amazing. God gets his will. He's able to make a blanket statement, all Israel will be saved, and yet he does not violate free will, does not violate personal choice. And so nobody has to choose him.
No, it would be, and as our move towards robotics will present us with a deception which is so thoroughgoing that even the elect will be fooled.
Interesting. Yeah. Interesting.
They've got robots that are every bit as alive, almost
Functional.
as functional.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy, but it's there. So we're now presented with a robotic existence of which you will never find intrinsically meaning. You'll find function, but not familiarity.
That's true. I enjoyed speaking with you. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that you would have liked me to have asked you, or is there anything else that you wanted to say?
Well, there was a question of the Commonwealth of Israel, which again, common.
Yeah, what is the Commonwealth of Israel?
Yeah, what's the Commonwealth? Commonwealth is life, a respect for life. But life is initiated by a life giver. You don't start life. I think I'll start some life today. Life is something called the breath of God, something that is breathed into mankind. If you believe in the Commonwealth of Israel, what is the Commonwealth? The Commonwealth is a profound, in its best, a profound respect for life over against suicidal, genocidal, all this devastation that's happening worldwide with babies, with all sorts of things. That is a preoccupation with death. Israel, via Joshua, therefore, why halt between two opinions? If God is God, choose him. If he isn't, then forget it. I'm not forcing you. This is a gift.
Right.
It's a free gift. Either take it and open it, or put it on the shelf and forget it, and I'll forget you.
It's a very nice idea that the Commonwealth of Israel is all those groups that live for life and see life as having come from God. Interesting.
Well, because of this crazy event in the desert.
Sinai.
They were maimed, I use that phrase, maimed forever with this revelation.
Maimed.
Maimed forever. They were limping like Jacob. They're limping through life. Limping because they're dragging God with them. They're dragging this huge responsibility. Wow. I'd limp too. Wow. If I'm dragging God along with L at the end of my name,
wow,
you should be hated by all nations for my name's sake. Oh, really? And what is that? El. Elohim. El Shaddai. It's there.
Wow.
And if you don't limp with that kind of load, you're a Samson. But most of us aren't. So they've got this limping aspect of Jacob that they've inherited. That's when he finally discovered God in a wrestling match.
Do we, as Gentile believers in Yeshua, do we limp with anything?
Not enough.
Not enough.
We avoid pain.
We try to avoid it.
It's of the devil. Pain's of the devil. No, the devil was created as an adversary. You have to overcome him.
Yeah.
You have to overcome pain, overcome all these things through the love of God and the grace given through the Old and the New Testament. It's grace to be told what to do. You have 10 ideas, 10 commandments. That's how you should live. Any other way, you're abusing yourself and mankind.
You know what? You've helped me see something today that
Good.
I've never seen. Well, many things, but the one thing I'm thinking of right now, I've never thought about this thought. But you and Merla, Merv and Merla Watson, together represent the Commonwealth of Israel.
Oh.
Because it's about life. It's about being part of something bigger. And here you are. And so it's a real pleasure. And not more than a pleasure. It's an honor to interview you, to tap into your understanding, to see things through your eyes, being planted here for so many years. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
God bless.
Bless you.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this interview with Merv Watson as much as I have. I hope you soak in it, meditate on it, consider the things that he's saying. And until next time, this is Bob Odell from Root Source saying, so long.